The merciless wild. The heartless seas. When nature unleashes her cruelty, could you escape? Could you survive? These are the true stories of outdoorsmen confronted by death, armed with raw courage and a will to live. They are the ones who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive. Best friends out for a day's fishing. Then disaster.
Mayday, Marine 16, Mayday. Come on, bro.
You gotta get off this thing, it's going down.
Plunging into a watery hell.
Just intensely cold.
They brave 2 days in frigid waters that should kill them in hours.
We need to get somewhere. Hypothermia is gonna kill you and me both.
Okay.
As body temperatures plummet, they face the ultimate decision.
Jesus, give me the strength.
This was probably the hardest decision I'd ever made in my life. Might be able to catch up on some redfish.
Oh, that'd be good.
The second day of spring, 2012. Best friends Ed Cohen and Ken Henderson set out for 2 days of Texas Gulf fishing on Ken's Sport Fisher. Their friendship and will to live will soon be tested by disaster and tragedy.
Ed was the best friend you could really ever have. My wife would always call him her other husband, you know, because she's known him, you know, for, I guess, about 15 years now, as long as she's known me.
It didn't matter if they were hunting, fishing, vacationing, just getting on the motorcycles and taking off. They were just inseparable.
We've made hunting trips to South Texas, fished in a spring-fed lake, and caught just tons and tons of largemouth bass, just catch and release, just having a good old time. We've been on ram hunts together. He's a fairly good shot, too. In fact, he killed his ram with a .45 automatic pistol.
Today, they've plotted a course to one of their favorite fishing spots, the oil rigs off Matagorda, Texas. Ken's just bought a 30-foot sport fisher. Although the boat's used, Ken's a boat safety instructor, swift water rescue expert, and master diver. So he's made sure the craft is sound and fully equipped.
We got everything working right. It had a brand new Icon marine radio in it, top of the line marine radio, side scan sonar with GPS. Went ahead and bought some extra safety equipment. I bought an extra 5 life jackets besides the 7 I already had on board. I had flares, charts, everything, the bellows, whistles, lights. I had everything in a 50 caliber ammo can that I kept stored in the bow of the boat. And it was waterproof, and of course, if anything ever happened, it would float.
Feeling prepared for anything, they set off south at 7:30 in the morning, heading for the Gulf's oil and gas rigs.
We were both like a couple kids that morning. We were excited, getting ready to go fishing the first time since December. It had been 4 months since we hadn't been able to go fishing because of the weather. I called my wife, Sandy, on the phone, and I told her, I said, look, we're going to head a little farther out. I won't have any cell service out there, but I'll give you a call when I come in this evening. You know, we were in no big hurry. Our big deal was just being out there and hanging around together and talking. We got 70 feet of water, man. This ought to be good.
They find a likely spot at a deserted platform and drop their lines.
I hope we do like we did last time. Get some bulls out of here.
Trees are full.
Suddenly, they see something's gone seriously wrong.
We're just shooting the bull, and he looked in the back. He goes, hey, I think we want to turn them bilge pumps on? I said, what do you mean? I looked back, and I was like, oh, my God.
For some reason, they're taking on water, and the bilge pumps can't handle the sudden flood.
We gotta get out of here, brother. All right, let's go.
Ken is a former law enforcement officer, and both are Marine veterans. They're used to facing emergency situations. And this is now a dire emergency.
Where's the water coming from?
I said, Ed, we got to go in. And I said, we need to get this boat running, see if we can get some hydraulic action, see if we can get this water vacuumed out of this boat. We got about 100 yards from the rig we were tied to, and one of the motors died. It's like, well, we're gonna have to limp in on one engine. I'm fixing to go ahead and put out a Mayday and we're still moving.
Ken's boat is foundering, with hundreds of gallons of seawater in the hull, and more pouring in. Then, the second motor dies, leaving them dead in the water.
I got on my cell phone, I hit 911, I got no signal, too far out, picked up the Marine radio, and I, Mayday, Mayday, Marine 16, Mayday. And I got no response because all I was going to do was blurt out our location and, and tell us vessel in distress, vessel going down.
Ken Henderson and Ed Cohen are sinking fast.
Mayday, Mayday, Marine 16, Mayday.
An offshore catastrophe leaves fishing buddies Ken Henderson and Ed Cohen scrambling in what would become an epic fight for survival.
I said, get the life jackets out. I put it on, buckled it one time.
Mayday, Mayday, vessel in distress. We're going down.
I'm still hollering on a radio for help.
Come on, brother. It's going down. Come on, brother.
The boat is listing badly to starboard, and water is rushing over the transom.
And Ed said, we gotta go, we gotta get off this thing. It's going down, it's gonna roll over.
Go.
I said, go, get in the water. So he jumped in. I was standing on the driver's seat. I let go, and just as I let go, the boat kind of violently popped straight up and threw me off.
You all right?
The boat just dropped straight down. There was about 8 feet of the bow sticking out. We both kind of looked at each other in amazement. We were just like, what just happened? This boat just sunk from underneath us in 5 minutes. From the first time I looked at my watch until we were in the water was less than 5 minutes. We didn't have time to react. As soon as that water hit you in the head, see spots, and it was just intensely cold.
Ken's instincts tell him the abandoned rig is their best bet for a safe haven.
And I started to swim, and I looked back, and Ed wasn't coming, and I had got about 100 yards from him, and I was like, no, I'm not going if he's not going.
The vital emergency gear Ken had so conscientiously packed onto the boat is now trapped inside it and beyond their reach.
When it went down, it took everything with it. When the boat turned up, it all floated up inside the cabin. So we didn't have our flares, we didn't have our whistles, our horns, our flashlight. That was everything we needed to get rescued with.
Adrift in a hostile sea, Ken and Ed only have life jackets and a half-filled bottle of Diet Cola. The relentless current is sweeping them away from the oil rig. As a master diver trained in survival techniques, Ken straps himself to Ed and puts more life jackets on them for added flotation.
And I actually put it over his head and put it on over the top of his other one. I said, is that better, keeping your head up out of the water?
Does that make you feel better?
Oh, much better.
Okay.
They are potentially just hours away from unconsciousness and death in the frigid Gulf waters, when they sight a glimmer of hope in the shape of another oil rig in the distance. Ken wants them to swim towards the rig.
And he said, no, I think we need to save our energy. I said, we need to get somewhere. Hypothermia is gonna kill you and me both. He says, no, somebody will come along, they'll get it. I said, okay, all right, we'll hang tight.
It has now been 6 hours in the water, and night is closing in. The men begin to fear for their survival, but there's a source of hope. Ken's wife, Sandy, is a 911 dispatcher. He's confident she'll spring into action.
Basically, I got mad eventually because I hadn't heard from him, and that was very unusual. I probably stayed up until 1 o'clock in the morning, just waiting on the phone to ring, and it, of course, never did.
The frigid March night goes on, and the two friends have only the warmth of words.
We talked during the night. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about family. We talked about how much we loved each other. We prayed together. We prayed, we kind of put our heads together, and we'd pray silently. And I started out asking for rescue. I even prayed for a dolphin to come by and give me a ride to a rig or something. All he kept saying was, I just want to get home and kiss my babies. I just want to get home and kiss my babies.
Fatigue and hypothermia are taking their toll, but they find a way to get some warmth and some rest.
During the night, we would take turns grabbing each other by our life jackets and pulling each other up on top of us, and then we'd wrap our legs around it and kind of get a little bit of, even though there's this much life jackets between us, we could get a little bit of radiant body heat and share it a little bit. And the only time you could really sleep is when you were on top of the other person. The next morning, you couldn't even work up a spit. It was getting hard to talk. Our jaws were both sore from our teeth chattering, and our muscles hurt from just violently shaking from the cold.
Without food or fresh water for almost 20 hours, they can only share sips of the Diet Cola. Now, the sign of advancing hypothermia. Ed begins to hallucinate.
I looked over and he pulled out a big lighter and said, "What are you gonna do? Light a signal flare or something?" I said, "No, I'm gonna light this cigarette." He said, "I got one dry cigarette." I said, "Where?" He goes, "Right here in my mouth." I said, "Brother, you ain't got a cigarette in your mouth." And he reaches up and and you could just see the disappointment roll over his face because he was like, "Man, I'm hallucinating."
The two men's torments stretch into the afternoon of the second day, and after 24 hours in the sea, Ken begins to hallucinate too. Ken and Ed are swiftly sinking into delirium, despair, and certain death.
Mayday, Marine 16, Mayday!
27 hours ago, Ken Henderson and Ed Cohen's sport fishing boat slid beneath the waters of the Texas Gulf. The ocean temperatures are dragging them mercilessly into hypothermia. Then, a glimmer of hope. A helicopter passes overhead. It's heading for a gas rig only miles away.
I realized that we were drifting by the rig, kind of catty corner, and if we swam across current, we might be able to, let the current slingshot us into the rig.
Ken encourages his friend to swim towards the rig, but Ed's body is failing.
He was mumbling and shaking, and we'd be having a conversation. He'd close his eyes, and I'd kind of shake him, and he'd wake up. "What? I'm listening, I'm listening."
Ken feels it's urgent that they swim to the rig. Ed, who's now critically hypothermic, doesn't have the strength. Ken unclips the tether that attaches them.
I said, "Ed, you're gonna have to help me here." He says, I can't do it anymore. I can't move, I can't do anything.
Ken doesn't want to leave his friend, but he makes the ultimate survival decision.
And I said, "All right," I said, "Look, here's the deal." I said, "I'm gonna have to go for help. I'm gonna have to try to make that rig." And I wrestled with that decision inside, thinking, well, if I miss the rig, we'll both die out here. If I make the rig, then at least I can get Ed some help. He said, "I understand. Make sure the first one back on shore gets to kiss them babies for me."
Be sure to kiss them babies for me.
And I said, "All right, buddy, I'm out of here. I'm going for help." And he goes, "All right." I said, "I'll see you in a little bit. I will see you in a little bit." And I shook him and told him that.
I love you, brother.
All right. I took off, and I started to swim for that rig, and I started to, cry a little bit, knowing that this was probably the hardest decision I'd ever made in my life, is leaving my best friend of 20-something years alone, not leaving him out there to perish in the ocean, but leaving him alone in the ocean. I swam about 20 yards. I looked over my shoulder, and I saw Ed one time rise in the waves. You could see him take his hand and wipe the water out of his face because the waves are still breaking on us and still ice cold. And then when I went about another 20 yards, I stopped and turned around. I couldn't see him anymore.
Ken swims as hard as he can, knowing that 2 lives now ride on him. But he's no match for the current and is swept past the rig and farther into the bone-chilling Gulf.
I finally resolved myself that this was it. that I was just going to have to float here and hope that somebody would find me, and then I could get back and they could find Ed, or they could find Ed and they could get to me, or whatever.
Along with his delirium and dehydration, Ken now has to deal with the pain of self-doubt.
The cardinal sin, I left a brother behind, and you never do that. I was just so disappointed in my decision making at that point.
Totally depleted by this futile swim, Ken passes out from exhaustion. When Ken awakens from semi-coma, it is night. He's survived 30 hours in Gulf waters that should have killed him a day ago. Exhausted and delirious, Ken can barely believe it when he sees a shining light of hope.
When I rose up, I saw a lit rig in the distance up there, and I guessed it to be about 4 or 5 miles away. And I followed up to a star, and I said, okay, that star right there. So I started swimming. I stopped for a few minutes when the cramps in my legs and my arms got so bad. And I stopped and prayed. I prayed for the strength. That's all I wanted. I said, Lord, just give me the strength to get Ed help. And I said, I'm not asking for much. I just give me a foot in the backside to keep going. I can't give up. I can't quit.
Ken's hypothermia has reached a critical stage, and time is running out. For 7 more hours, he struggles towards the rig, praying for his life and the survival of his best friend. Ken Henderson is desperately swimming towards a gas rig, hoping to save his life and the life of his best friend, Ed Cohen. The 7-hour swim has cost him the last of his strength, but finally, he reaches the platform. He spots a ladder inside the structure.
I pulled with all my strength and got my legs up on the bottom rung, but when I stood up, it was like I wasn't standing up. It was weird. I couldn't feel my legs very well.
He climbs aboard and wanders into the rig's galley. The crew is asleep, but Ken finds food, water, and miraculously a telephone.
Turned around and looked, and there was a cordless phone on a charger. And I was like, no, I'm hallucinating. There's no cordless phone on an oil rig. I went over, picked it up, and got a dial tone, and I called my home phone number.
Sandy answers, and it's a voice she's been desperate to hear.
He was so hoarse that you couldn't hardly understand, anything that he had to say. And he said, I don't have but a minute, but I'm on an oil rig, and Ed is still out there. And he was telling me what rig number he was on.
Sandy immediately phones the Coast Guard and gives them the platform's number.
Hang on. You got a pencil?
The Coast Guard fixes the location. Incredibly, Ken is 54 miles from where his boat went down. Ken tries to warm up and prays for good news about Ed. The next morning, he's transported to a Coast Guard station and aids in their search.
Well, this is where we have you picked up at. You want to go over here?
I was pointing at rigs on charts and everything else, and I heard the Marine 16 radio in the background, and I heard that somebody say that the fishermen had found what they believed to be Ed's body floating in the water.
Ed's pulse is weak, and Ken is rushed to the hospital.
But it didn't look good. And I had pretty much resigned myself to the fact that, it was, kind of a shot of hope, but it was a shot of hope. And the lady came out and she said, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Cohen didn't survive. And I kind of wilted. I kind of fell out, really. Once I got my thoughts together, I said, take me to him. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yes, I'm positive. Take me to him. I uncovered his head and talked to him for a minute and apologized to him and that I couldn't get him some help quicker. And then I promised him that I would, do what he asked me to do and take care of the girls the way he's always told me that he wanted me to.
Ed is gone. The doctors now focus on Ken's condition and insist on immediate hospitalization.
I got on the road and probably broke every speed limit between Conroe and Matagorda. Just such a relief to see his face for that first time. So I stayed in the room with him and slept in the bed with him, and there was a lot of teary moments where he still had a lot going through his mind.
Everything that had gone on, it finally hit me, and I knew that I was going to have to go back and to explain to those 3 babies and 2 grandbabies that I took their daddy fishing and didn't bring him home.
First one back. Be sure to kiss them babies for me.
After 3 days, Ken is released. He knows there is one more thing to do for Ed. And then his phone rings.
It was Ashley, the oldest daughter. Uncle Ken, are you home? I said, yes, baby, I'm home. Can we come see you? I said, I wouldn't keep you from it. All 3 of the girls, they all came over, and they were, when they saw me, they got upset and they were crying, and I gave them all. We all got in a big circle, and I hugged, and I told them, I said, I'm so sorry. I wish I could have, brought your daddy home, but. And Ashley's like, Daddy was doing what he loved to do with the person he loved to do it with, and he probably wouldn't have had it any other way. And I said, well, y'all line up. And they said, what for? I said, I made a promise to your daddy, and I lined all 3 of them up and gave them all a big kiss. I said, that's from your daddy. And I said, that was the last thing he told me.
The merciless wild. The heartless seas. When nature unleashes her cruelty, could you escape? Could you survive? These are the true stories of outdoorsmen confronted by death, armed with raw courage and a will to live. They are the ones who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive. A hunter vanishes in one of the most unforgiving hunting grounds in America.
When stuff goes bad, everything happens, and it happens quick. And I only had like 30 seconds.
A one-day hunt in the Florida Everglades turns into 4 days trapped in a living hell.
Really getting eaten alive.
He outwits alligators and snakes, only to suffer the deadliest of all challenges.
It'd be easier just to give up and die right now.
Hunting, fishing, and camping, often on his own, in the rugged hills of upstate New York, from the time he was a boy, have taught Jamie Moshe the crucial lessons of wilderness survival.
I grew up in the city, but I just loved the outdoors, so that's what I did mostly, just hunt and fish. But I was always comfortable in the woods.
In 2009, Jamie trades the familiar woods and streams of his home state for the semi-tropical southlands of Florida. But with him, he brought his love of the outdoors, which is how he met Matt Pepler while out fishing one day.
And we got to talking on the pier and fishing together and really hit it off. And basically, we had a really great friendship ever since that day.
I ended up switching from, being a big game hunter to doing whatever kind of hunting I could do, because in Florida, it's just a totally different kind of atmosphere from, upstate New York. Whatever was possible, we ran out and tried to catch.
On November 16th, 2009, Jamie meets two local hunters who offer to take him on a day of wild boar hunting.
They invited me to go, and I'm, so gung-ho about going out hunting. I consider myself a very good hunter, so I figured I'd definitely be able to go out and get something.
Assumed he was, gonna go out, have a great time with these other hunters. I was excited to hear how he did when he got back.
Jamie gathers his gear and rides with them to their cabin deep in the Everglades. The plan is to get up with the dawn to hunt.
In the morning when we woke up, I was putting on my hunting clothes, and they went out to start the truck.
What's up, guys? Ready to go hunting?
Their truck wouldn't start. So they were gonna work on the truck.
I don't know, it just won't start this morning.
So I said, well, I'm no mechanic, I'm going hunting. You guys can fix the truck. So they told me where to go. They said, walk down the road, a mile or so and cut into your left. So that's what I did.
At 9 a.m., Jamie Moshe enters an environment like nothing he's ever encountered. The Everglades is a slow-moving river, 60 miles wide and 100 miles long. The dense sawgrass and razor-sharp palmettos provide habitat for wild boar, deer, snapping turtles, panthers, exotic giant pythons, and bull alligators.
I had a 12-gauge Mossberg pump, compass. I had all my survival gear on my cell phone. I had everything that I needed. I had some water that day. So for the day, I was good to go.
Jamie moves into the glades, putting miles between him and the cabin. It's a silent stalk through deep water and tangled vegetation, his mind on wild game.
It was a really hot day that day, so nothing was really moving. I saw some gators, saw some snakes, but I didn't see any pigs.
Deeper and deeper, Jamie stalks, undeterred.
The Everglades is 10 times more harsh of an environment than upstate New York. I thought I could handle it. It wasn't a big deal. It's nice, being out there, seeing all the different things, being out in a different environment, seeing all the different animals, snakes and the alligators.
Tired from dealing with the difficult terrain, Jamie stretches out on a patch of dry ground for a short nap. He awakens to the unexpected.
When I woke up and realized it was dark, I figured, no big deal, I'll just walk out. But my flashlight was dead, all my stuff was dead, everything got wet that day. At night, you can't move because you can't see in front of your face, so I was stuck that night. So I honestly didn't think it was a real big deal, I've stayed out in 10 times worse conditions than this. So I started a fire that night, had a fire, and, I slept next to my gun, and it was nice.
With a broken compass, a waterlogged cell phone, and dead flashlight, Jamie is left with only his shotgun. He settles into his first night, surrounded by darkness and a vast marsh full of predators. But no amount of firepower and no amount of experience gained from years of hunting the placid woods of upstate New York would help him through the life and death ordeal awaiting him. "30-year-old Jamie Moshe has brought his New York State wilderness survival skills to the foreign territory of South Florida. Deep in the Everglades, he is far from the friends he has come hunting with, having endured an exhausting day of slogging through sloughs, ruining his compass, flashlight, and cell phone. Now, darkness has trapped him till morning.
It got down to like 47 degrees or something, which is pretty cold. People don't know it gets that cold in November in Florida.
Jamie's last chance to be located by his friends is to fire off the universal backwoods distress signal. He fires 3 fast, 3 slow, and then 3 fast shots.
And I heard 1 gunshot. You know, it seemed pretty close, but I was pretty sure where it came from, so I marked an arrow in the ground that night so I could walk that way in the morning, you know.
When Jamie does not return to the cabin, the other hunters contact the police and report him missing. Now Jamie's other friends and family know he's in jeopardy.
I didn't really know what to think. Obviously, I was concerned, but Jamie did have a lot of survival skills, and my assumption was that he probably did make a fire and camped out there, and he'd make his way back out at daylight.
I was up before the sun came up, you know. I was cold. I was ready to get moving. You know, my fire died off. Had no food, no water. So I was ready. I was very eager, you know, to get moving. So I could follow the sun. As soon as it came up, I knew exactly which way to go.
But thickets of sharp-edged palmettos and tangles of vines prevent Jamie from being able to maintain a direct path.
Sometimes I'd have to take detours to go through because it was so thick you couldn't get through it. So you'd have to go in the water, and then I'd end up chest deep in water that I didn't plan on going through, but I had to go through it to get to the next piece of land.
It's now been over 24 hours, and Jamie Moshe is beginning to realize the magnitude of his predicament.
In this environment, when you get lost, it's not like New York where you can find a bearing where you have hills or find something that you can pick out and walk towards, you know, so that way you have some point of direction to go towards and you can keep following that direction. So this is flat. There's nothing to keep your bearings to know exactly where to go.
With none of the usual landmarks common in his old hunting grounds to go on, Jamie is reduced to aimless wandering. He desperately tries to find some sign to point him back towards the hunting cabin.
As the days progressed, I was definitely becoming more concerned. I felt that something must have happened to him.
Jamie knows he's undergoing a role change. From apex predator hunting the glades, he has now become potential prey, vulnerable to everything from the charge of a wild boar, snakebite, being caught by a python, or the attack of a gator. But most of all, he is at the mercy of the environment.
I'm walking through some water that's, you know, probably 3 foot deep. I have my rubber boots on, you know, they go up to my knees, and I'm stuck in mud.
The swamp mud is acting like quicksand.
And as I'm trying to take a step, you know, my boots are coming off, and I'm just like sinking further and further, but I didn't want to lose my boots.
Like an Ice Age animal caught in a tar pit, Jamie fights against the gluey mud.
I'm sinking, I'm sinking, I'm sinking.
Frantically, Jamie kicks hard to try and free himself from whatever is holding onto his boots.
I'm mud up to my waist, you know, and I'm stuck, you know, and I'm sinking slowly in the mud.
The tugging and kicking is churning the mud even more, and Jamie sinks faster. Even if he can escape drowning, he may still be trapped, immobile, for so long that other forces could take his life.
I end up to water up to my chin.
The deeper Jamie Moshe sinks, the closer he is coming to dying alone and lost in the heart of the Everglades. Hunter Jamie Moshe, lost and alone deep in the Florida Everglades, is trapped in quicksand-like mud and is moments from death.
I started sinking, you know, and I had my gun in my left hand, and I was hanging onto a branch with my right hand, trying to keep me up. I only had like 30 seconds left, so I had to make a decision.
Jamie needs both hands to survive. He tries to throw his gun to shore.
Didn't make it to shore, of course. It landed in a swamp.
Jamie's last hope to free himself is to slip out of his boots, pants, and gear.
I unbuckled my fanny pack and my pants. So I was able to get out, slip out of the mud, and then there's 3 foot of water on top, which I was able to swim to shore to get out of the quicksand.
The desperate plan works. Half naked, caked in mud, and unarmed, Jamie crawls from the deadly bog.
Once I was on shore, I took a breath and stuff. I wanted to get some of my gear back or get anything back. Kept going back into the water and just swimming on top of the water, sticking my hands like in the mud trying to feel for anything. But I couldn't find anything. The gun had sunk, my pants, this panty pack, like everything was gone. Now I'm real concerned. I'm in a tank top. I have no gear. I don't know where I'm at. I'm in a total environment where you don't want to be without shoes. You don't want to be without a gun. You don't want to be without any of your gear, you know what I mean? And I didn't have anything.
Jamie's physical predicament could hardly be worse. He is now 3 days without food or drinking water. His gun and gear and even his clothes have been lost. All he can see is unbroken thickets of sawgrass and palmetto. Jamie's ordeal is mirrored by the anguish his friends and family are enduring.
Not knowing was definitely the hardest part. Did he have a fall and injure himself? Was he bitten by a snake? Was it an alligator?
Jamie has not had anything to drink. He fears swamp-borne disease. Then luckily, he comes upon a natural spring.
You don't find too many rocks in the Everglades, and there's like water in it. Crystal clear water, and every little mud puddle in Florida has these little guppies in there, these little minnows.
Jamie uses his shirt as a filter to catch the guppies.
I was eating the guppies, just, not very many, just what I could catch in my shirt. Caught a couple frogs, ate them.
As he drinks the spring water and eats the tiny fish, he realizes there could be a heartier meal.
I remember I was down on my hands and knees, like slurping this water, and it's like eel looking like thing, like came out. I thought it was like a snake, like came out like to bite my lip or something, So I jumped back and I ended up getting a stick and wiggling it in front of the hole, and when it came out, I ended up grabbing it from behind. So I ate that.
It's now 4 days into Jamie Moshe's ordeal. He's been slashed by vines and devoured by insects.
I'm drenched, from walking through the swamps all day. I'm cut up. The bugs are horrendous there. I was covered from head to toe. There wasn't one spot on me that didn't have a bug bite. Really getting eaten alive. Never seen anything like it.
Wading through waist-deep water, Jamie is on the alert for venomous snakes, pythons, and aggressive alligators. But the real danger is something unexpected that may halt the lost hunter in his tracks.
I end up twisting my leg in in between some branches, and I popped my knee out.
On top of all his other trials, Jamie now has to deal with a dislocated knee that may reduce him to immobility. He must take action.
When you pop your knee out, it hurts really bad for the first 10 seconds when you do it. But after a half hour, it swells up so big, and it's pretty much like it's broken. You can't do anything, you can't move it. And I knew for a fact, if I don't pop my knee back in pretty soon, within a couple minutes, it's gonna swell so big, I'm not gonna be able to pop it back in. I'm not gonna be able to move, I'm just gonna be stuck.
Jamie will have to treat his injury himself if he hopes to keep walking his way out. He braces himself. He must force his kneecap back into place. Blinding pain shoots through Jamie. Now, without a gun, gear, or a way to make a fire, he faces having to hobble on. Worse than all, though, is the spreading sense of despair.
I've been going through this for days, I'm just thinking, I'd rather just die pretty much and do this.
For hunter Jamie Mosh, the Florida Everglades' 4,000 square miles of tangled vegetation have become a death trap, while his family and friends can only hope and pray.
It was a very helpless feeling. All we could really do was talk to each other and try and keep our spirits up. And we had everybody here on the case, and there was so many people involved that he was going to be found. I was sure of it.
For 4 days, Jamie has been under siege from the environment. He survives insects, no food, a near drowning, and along the way has lost his shotgun, gear, boots, and even his clothes. He's dislocated his knee and can only hobble forward. He tries to suppress dark thoughts.
After I popped my leg back in, I sort of like got a second wind, after I was feeling sorry for myself, thinking about killing myself, and, thinking about this, and I was thinking about my mother and my friends, and thinking about everybody. It was like, you know what? If anybody can make it out of this, you can make it out of this.
For his family and friends, whom he knows are waiting for him, he presses on. Then he sees helicopters flying overhead.
I keep seeing these helicopters, and they're flying over top of me, but they're not seeing me.
The helicopters are a beacon of hope that the search is on for him. Jamie knows that if he is going to be saved, he must aid in his own rescue.
I ended up climbing up this tree and sitting in this tree for a couple hours in the morning, trying to get a chopper to fly by that could see me. Of course, no helicopters fly by the whole time I'm up there. I could see them miles away, but none came by me the whole time.
Jamie's efforts prove futile. Facing defeat, he climbs down from his perch. He's ready to give up.
I find this hot spot and I lay down and it's in like a little clearing.
Then, a miraculous sound.
I'm hearing Jamie, and then I start hearing it get further and further away. Suddenly I screamed out, help! And, they screamed my name, and, over here! I said, yeah, I'm Jamie, and they came over, and they found me. I started crying, and I busted out in tears, I was just so overwhelmed, that I was found,
Base, we found Jamie. He's banged up, but he's alive.
Drained of emotion, Jamie feels true exhaustion set in as his rescuers help him from the glades.
He looked like he had walked out of a horror movie. He was cut from head to toe, cuts on top of mosquito bites on top of cuts. It looked pretty gruesome, but he was in good spirits and otherwise healthy. It was amazing to see him. It was amazing. Surreal almost, but a joyous occasion.
And I was just so happy to see everybody, like my whole family. I felt bad that I put everybody through what I did. They had to go through all this, I know it must have been hell for them just thinking that they lost their friend or they lost their child.
This harrowing incident has given Jamie a new perspective on life.
I definitely live each day with a little bit more love for life. I appreciate my friends and my family 10 times more because you really don't know what's going to happen the day after the next. So you got to tell your parents that you love them, tell your friends that you love them. If you learn anything, out of this whole incident, always be prepared, and just remember anything can happen at any time.
Jamie Mosh continued his life as an avid outdoorsman. In the spring of 2013, shortly after sharing this story, Jamie passed away suddenly. His incredible story of survival remains a testament to the adventurous spirit that guided his life. The merciless wild. The heartless seas. When nature unleashes her cruelty, could you escape? Could you survive? These are the true stories of outdoorsmen confronted by death armed with raw courage and a will to live. They are the ones who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive. A father and daughter, and a lifelong shared love of the hunt. But the determination to take an elk drives one to dive dangerously deep into the Oregon wilderness.
It was excruciating pain.
The enemy is savage, lethal cold.
My body was shutting down.
And father and daughter will discover the depth of their love during a desperate search.
If I don't get found, I'm going to freeze to death.
It's only natural that Michelle Heilman would grow up hunting and fishing with her father Benny in the rugged and spectacular Wallowa Mountains in a remote part of northeastern Oregon.
Wallowa is a beautiful country. A lot of people call it Little Switzerland. I've seen Switzerland. It is a lot like it. Beautiful mountains, clear streams, beautiful rivers, and every way you turn, you can see mountains.
For a hunter and angler, there may be no better place on earth.
I've been a hunter and a fisherman for as long as I can remember. Michelle and I have hunted together since she was old enough to go. She killed her first deer when she was about 14.
Dad also taught her to be a skilled marksman and to have an appreciation for hunting firearms.
I think my proudest moment was a 4-point buck. He was big, and I had made a contribution to the freezer.
Now, a mild October day during elk season is about to usher in an ordeal for the Heilmans.
When I woke up on October 27th, I didn't have any intentions of going elk hunting. I was going up to my folks' place. I was going to take care of their critters while they went out elk hunting. And my mother, when I had got there, she says, I just don't feel good. You go out with your dad. You spend time with your dad. And I said, I'm pooped. I don't want to go out.
I want to get that elk out of here.
In spite of her fatigue, Michelle decides it will be worth it to spend time with her dad on the hunt and to have the chance of taking her elk this season.
It was nice. The sun was shining. I mean, it was great. No complaints.
Benny's plan for the day is to go where they've seen fresh tracks. He'll set Michelle out and set up ahead of her as she walks the woods toward him. They'll see what she pushes out.
We had been in the same general area the day before, so I had told her that I did not want to walk that morning. My knees were hurting me really bad. And I says, I'll let you out, and I want you to walk. I didn't want her to cross the road, and I didn't want her to cross the fence.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you.
See ya.
It looks like a successful tactic when Michelle comes onto a trio of elk.
When I started the walk, it wasn't 10 minutes, and I jumped the 3, the bull, the cow, and the calf, and they went straight up, straight down, and I followed. I got one shot off, and that was it.
Needing to know if she's wounded the bull, Michelle stays on the trail, ignoring her father's warning about the road, and pushing down into a black canyon.
My dad had said, don't cross the road. And I had thought, you know, he's done it 101 times. I'm going to do it. I may have my elk this year. I'm going to follow. I didn't think about telling anybody where I was going.
Michelle's determination draws her deeper into treacherous territory.
Once I crossed the road, followed the elk down into a little ravine, and the elk went down, crossing into another draw, and then into a canyon. I followed, and they just kept going straight down. And when I finally lost sight of them is when I took stock of my settings, looked around. It was probably about 4 o'clock, and I was at the bottom. And thought, oh boy, I've got to walk all the way back up.
Michelle Heilman is lost deep in the canyon, and her afternoon hunting trip is about to turn into a life-threatening ordeal. Hunter Michelle Heilman is lost deep in a hazardous canyon. Now her father Benny's concern is verging on a nightmare.
I gave her an hour, about an hour and a half, and then I went down the fence line looking for her. I didn't find her or any sign of her. Took the pickup and drove the roads all around the area looking for her, but no sign of her, no tracks, no nothing. I got very concerned, and I called the sheriff's office, and requested search and rescue.
The rescue team arrives and begins an all-out search.
I don't know, I can't find
I showed them the tracks. They marked that area, and they then spread out and did what they called a grid search. To no avail, no tracks, no anything.
Michelle calls up the survival techniques her father taught and builds a shelter for the night.
When I made my decision to stay right there that night, I was thinking that it was the safest spot and the safest thing to do right there.
By the end of October, the weather can take violent turns without warning. But as Michelle prepares to face the dark, there is hope in the sound of a string of gunshots.
I bedded down there, and I had heard 9 shots. And I thought, well, I'll fire 3 shots, and they'll know that I'm down here. No, I'm all right. And I had fired 3 shots, and somebody had fired some more shots. And I thought, well, they're answering my shots. They know I'm okay.
But the deep canyon walls muffle the sound of Michelle's rifle from the ears of her father and the rescue team.
That first day, search and rescue looked way into the night. I probably didn't quit till almost midnight, and they stopped the search until daylight on Monday morning.
At first confident in her survival skills, Michelle begins to grow unsure as she tallies the long list of fundamental mistakes she has made.
I screwed up. I should have had my day pack, and because I had a blanket in it, I had a parka, sandwiches, fire material, medication. I was ready if I would have had that.
Michelle makes it through one night with only cold and discomfort. But ahead lies unforeseen disaster before the morning's done.
Daylight, about 6:30, I could see, and I was up and going again. And I was making my way across the rocks, and I was walking on top of that, doing really well for my first 10 minutes. But I took a step, my leg disappeared into a hole. Excruciating pain. Everything in my mind was white. It was just pain.
Michelle's hope of finding her way out has now been dealt a potentially fatal blow.
The thought that came to mind was, I'm hurt. I don't know if I can get out of this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of this canyon without help.
To Michelle's injury, add the appearance of a bear hunting for food. But these are just the start of a string of mounting dangers. elk hunter Michelle Heilman has plunged off the trail into the deadly maze of a dark canyon. After an icy night, she now lies seriously injured, and somewhere near her, a bear is roaming, looking for food.
I didn't want to be a predator's meal.
Michelle suffered a freak accident, and when she at last examines her leg, she realizes she has sustained a severe trauma. Tree branches have punctured the back of her knee.
And there was 2 sticks underneath the kneecap, and I had managed to pull those out. There was no real major bleeding of any sort.
There's no alternative. Keep moving or die.
I pulled myself up the bank and crawled several feet. I was in a lot of pain. Didn't know what I was going to do exactly. I had no first aid kit with me. There was nothing there to bandage it.
In excruciating pain, Michelle must crawl her way upward, making agonizingly slow progress. It's now been 2 days, frigid temperatures, and no food.
I had a real dear friend that said that rose hips were good for you. And there was several rose bushes, wild rose bushes along the sides. And so I decided that I would pick the rose hips and I would chew on those. And they weren't too bad, very seedy, but in a lot of ways taste like oranges. Then something else that I ate was moss. Light moss makes you sick. Dark moss is palatable.
Measuring her progress in yards rather than miles, Michelle is still being shadowed by a bear.
The bear was going up the hill the same time I was. He was foraging and looking for things to eat before he hibernated.
Black bears attack and kill more people than do grizzlies. Luckily for Michelle, this one does not seem to have detected her.
That was one of my fears, if he got the smell of me or could smell my leg, it was an open wound. I was worried that he could take advantage of that, and that put the fear into me.
Michelle's desperate odyssey has now spanned days. But unknown to her, the force of volunteer searchers is only growing, giving her father hope.
The search effort continued and seemed to grow every day. People brought extra horses. On Wednesday, there were so many people looking and coming that they had to turn people away.
Temperatures falling to 14 below take their relentless toll on Michelle's body.
I had been crawling for several days, and my feet got to the point where I couldn't feel them. And so for every step I took forward, it seemed like I was falling one step backwards.
Incredibly, Michelle has survived for almost a week. When a passing helicopter fails to spot her, the suffering she is feeling begins to spread from her body to her mind and her spirit.
On about the 7th day, my body was shutting down. It just didn't feel right. My mind wasn't as crisp and clear as I thought it should be. And I was thinking, this is getting close to the end. If I don't get found, I'm going to freeze to death.
Feeling she's nearing her end, Michelle prepares a final testament.
I had my walking stick with me, and I decided that I was going to carve a message to my dad. And I think I wrote on, "I'm sorry, Dad, but it wasn't your fault."
And then she suffers yet another fall. Michelle is failing fast. All she has left is her faith and perhaps divine intervention. Michelle Heilman's October elk hunt in Oregon has turned into a saga of incredible hardship. Lost, freezing, starving, and badly injured. How has she survived this long? It may be that help came from an angelic origin.
On my third night, I was in a lot of pain, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get through it alone. And I had asked God for help. I said, it's cold, I need warmth. There's just no way that I can get through this alone. I went to sleep, and I slept fairly sound, and I was warm. And I woke up, and there was this personage beside me. And I looked at him, and I thought, wow, I'm warm. God's taking care of it.
Michelle's father, Benny, feels time is slipping away for his daughter, and he begins to think the unthinkable.
The possibility of her still being alive was slim. I knew it was coming, but it was heartbreaking because I felt that she was still alive. She's never been a person to give up on anything. The sheriff's office and the search and rescue people felt that it was time to go from search and rescue to recovery.
8 days and 7 nights into the ordeal, the authorities are about to scale back the search to a skeleton crew. Benny takes to the radio and asks for volunteers to help him find his daughter. 350 neighbors and complete strangers respond. Somewhere in the dark canyon that the elk drew her down into, Michelle is losing her fight to live. Then, a Heilman family friend, Will Lair, follows a hunch, or maybe it's a direction from something beyond. He and Marilyn Seaford search in McAllister Creek Canyon. Deep in the canyon, he hears moaning. At first, he thinks it's a bear.
The next thing I knew, I was shouting Michelle's name. It just came out of me. And about as fast as I was surprised that took place, Michelle answers me, over here. I couldn't believe my ears. I just started going through that creek bottom, through the thick brush, hollering back, where you at? I'm coming for you. And finally, I could see her. I got a visual, and finally, I made my way to her. And she was just as calm and peaceful as can be.
I had crawled down to the creek to get breakfast, as I called it, my water and my rose hips along the way. And I heard somebody say, Michelle! And it was so strange, not hearing anybody. I said, yeah, what do you want? And it was dead silent. Is that you, Michelle?
Michelle, is that you?
Yes. Where are you? I'm having breakfast.
Sunday morning, we put everybody in that canyon. About 9:30 in the morning, he found her. Bill called me on the radio and he said, Benny, she's alive.
Benny, it's Bill.
I found her and she's in the bottom of the canyon.
Benny fights his way down into the canyon to find his daughter, miraculously alive.
When my father came in to the draw, the first thing I said to him is, what took you so long? I'm right beside the fence, and I'm sorry I crossed the road. And he said, do I have to get an elk out of here?
Drag an elk out of here?
And I said, no, you don't have to get an elk. And he was asking me, he says, do you think you can get up and walk? Or can you get up and walk? And I said, nope, can't do that. Feet are froze solid.
Airlifted to safety, Michelle's ordeal is far from over. At the hospital, the pain of thawing her frostbitten flesh is excruciating. And the final verdict is heart-wrenching. Both her lower legs must be amputated.
They saved both of my knees and 4 inches below the knees on both legs. I'm very blessed. I can walk.
Loss of her limbs has really not changed Michelle in spirit or any way that she was. She still wants to hunt. She still wants to fish.
I think I have adjusted very well. I'm trying to do everything that I did before. Still go fishing, still go hunting.
Michelle Heilman's agonizing ordeal has led to insight for her and for her father.
I think after this incident happened with Michelle, it has made me realize just how precious each day is. Tomorrow is not for certain.
You don't take life for granted. Enjoy today. Enjoy everything that is around you today. You don't know what's going to come tomorrow.
A father and son ride deep into the backcountry.
The terrain of the road was pretty rough, lots of rocks sticking out.
Dad! Suddenly, their world is literally turned upside down.
It is going to either crush me or kill me.
Go to Uncle George's. Now, a 10-year-old boy must overcome incredible odds to save his dad's life.
I was terrified. I didn't think I could do it.
It's an epic struggle for both father and son as they fight to survive. In the wild, when things go bad, they go bad fast. Without warning, your life can hang by a thread. Adventurer and survivor Craig DiMartino fought back from his own wilderness disaster to reclaim his life. Now Craig meets other courageous outdoorsmen who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive.
Spending time alone with your son is a treasured experience. I rock climb with my son. It's one of the best things we do. Spending time alone in the backcountry, sharing something we both love. For John Sloot and his 10-year-old son Cody, a birthday camping trip nearly ends in tragedy and calls upon one son to become his father's only hope.
John Sloot of Castlegar, British Columbia, has loved the great outdoors ever since he can remember.
I've always been an outdoors person. My father has taken me out since I was a little boy, and I do the same now with my 3 sons.
June 15th, 2007 was a very special day.
You go on a fishing trip, Cody?
Yep.
It was Cody Sloot's 10th birthday.
Yes.
And there was no better way to celebrate it than by going on a backcountry fishing trip. Their destination was Cinnamon Lake.
Me and my dad went fishing a lot.
Get there before nightfall and get set up.
He was teaching me how to fly fish. I was very excited to go on this trip.
Ready to go?
Oh, yeah.
I had been looking forward to it for over a month.
It took an ATV to access this isolated fishing spot.
The quad was loaded up with like frying pans, food, tents, definitely fishing poles.
Along the way, they stopped at Cody's Aunt Louise and Uncle George's cabin, about 10 miles from the lake.
Where you going? Going up Cinnamon Lake fishing for a couple days.
We had jokingly told them, if we're not back in a couple of days, come looking for us.
Will do.
It was meant to be a joke.
Hey, Cody, happy birthday.
John wanted to make this wilderness trip really memorable for Cody.
I wanted to take Cody on that particular road because it was less well used. And it had some scenic points along the way.
Maybe we'll see some wildlife while we're going along.
We'd never been that way before. I thought it'd be more interesting than speeding down a gravel road.
The trail eventually narrowed, but that didn't stop them from forging ahead.
The terrain of the road was pretty rough, lots of rocks sticking out.
We'll have to cut this tree so we can get by.
And we had to stop once and use the hatchet to chop down a small tree that was blocking the path. And once that was out of the way, we went a little bit further. It turned and went alongside a steep hill, which narrowed the trail some, but still wide enough for an ATV to cross without any trouble.
Cody, I'm gonna have you get off.
I asked Cody not to get on the ATV until I had crossed. I'm not sure why I had asked him that.
Sometimes we do things and don't know why. Intuition, the hand of God. This was one of those times for John.
I saw no reason why we couldn't be on there together. I'm not really sure why I asked him to walk behind. I just know I'm glad I did.
John inched along the path while Cody watched.
Dad, be careful! When the trail narrowed, it was right near like a really steep bank, probably about 100 meters down to the bottom. I trusted my dad. I knew that he knew what he was doing.
And as any ATVer knows, you lean uphill if you're going across it. That's what I was doing.
As I was walking, I saw the dirt between the left side of the quad fall away, and the quad started to tip. Dad! It was almost like slow motion.
John was thrown off the falling ATV, and both he and the 600-pound machine hurtled down the bank.
It is going to either crush me or kill me.
John Sloot was on a backcountry adventure with his young son, Cody.
Get off.
When suddenly their fishing trip turned into a nightmare.
I thought for sure it was going to land on top of me. And then all of a sudden, the noise had stopped.
Cody, I'm gonna have you get off.
John, for whatever reason, had told Cody not to join him on the ATV while he crossed the narrow path. Now Cody was safe, 100 feet up, staring in disbelief.
I just stood there with my mouth open for like 10 or 15 seconds before I realized what was happening.
Craig DiMartino, as a father, has had plenty of heart-to-heart talks with his son. He wanted to hear from Cody how he dealt with this terrible moment.
So when you see your dad and the ATV start flipping and you're watching this thing happen, what is running through your mind? What are you feeling at that point?
I just felt kind of like an empty shell. It kind of felt like a dream where I was looking down at myself. I mean, being 10 years old, my mind wasn't even able to process what was happening.
I can hear Cody up the hill from me.
Dad, are you okay?
Cody, I'm all right.
I told him I was fine. I was thinking that I was extremely lucky that it just bounced right over top of me. But when I tried to sit up, then I really felt the pain in my right calf. It was excruciating. I realized it did land on me, but I was alive.
Dad, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Though John was seriously hurt, his thoughts were for Cody.
The ATV flips, you're on the ground, you know you're hurt, but now you're also thinking, I got Cody with me.
I was pretty concerned for Cody. You know, he's only just a little 10-year-old boy, and I wanted to make it as less traumatic for him as I could. And if that meant me taking on extra pain or extra trauma for myself, I would do it.
We got ourselves quite a mess here, Cody.
He didn't seem to be injured. He seemed to be a little bit sore, but nothing serious.
I'll be all right.
Once he kind of regained his wits, he was telling me mostly that it would be okay.
John and Cody assessed their situation.
The two of us looked uphill and downhill at all the debris. Everything was spread all over.
You want to take that backpack down, Cody? We'll pack up a few things.
Sure.
I told Cody, we gotta start gathering some of this stuff up, but only the stuff we really need.
Bacon, a hatchet.
I got as much food as I could, mostly like Pop-Tarts and bacon, and I found our steaks.
The ATV was destroyed, and they were miles from any possible help. Walking out looked like their only option.
My leg was hurting quite bad.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
My calf was swollen, and it was rock hard. I couldn't move my right arm. I couldn't move my fingers, my elbow, my shoulder. It was just hanging there. I was quite sure I wouldn't make it too far.
Cody, I think we're gonna have to hike our way out of here.
I had not just myself to get out of there, but I had a boy to get out of there as well.
You scared?
A little.
It'll be all right.
I would deal with the pain.
We'll find our way.
I gotta do whatever it takes.
Okay.
If I lose it, I'll lose it. If it gets amputated or becomes so painful that I can't stand to be on it, I would go as far as I could. I gotta get out, and no one's coming.
John Sloot's ATV has tumbled down a steep bank, leaving him badly injured. Now he has to figure out how he and his 10-year-old son can walk 6 miles out of the wilderness.
Maybe we should say a prayer before we leave to help us through our journey.
I think that'd be a good idea.
All right.
They took a momentary break from prepping and called on a trusted source of strength.
I guess I have to be honest, I was feeling somewhat scared that I wouldn't be able to do what I could for Cody.
Dear Lord, give us the strength and wisdom to get us through this journey.
We said a prayer
Please
that
guide us and protect us.
we'll be able to find a way to get out of here. You know, that we'll be able to be strong. You know, that we'll have whatever it takes to get out.
Get us back to our family and friends. Guide us along the way. Amen.
And afterwards, I felt a wave of assurance. It certainly won't be easy.
Right.
But that we would eventually get some help.
There was little choice in the direction they would go.
I knew there was no way I could walk up that hill. I wanted to get to this one intersection where 2 forestry roads came together, and it was about a 5-kilometer walk.
The hike to the road was extremely rough. We were climbing over and under just a ton of fallen trees and over branches and bushes. Being 10 years old, I still saw my dad as sort of a superhero. I figured he was okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
John was in excruciating pain, but he did his best to keep Cody's spirits up.
I was walking with a pretty good limp, and I couldn't hide it, but I could hide the pain from Cody.
As we were hiking, my dad probably said to me that it would be okay about 200 times.
I'll be all right.
I had to stop every couple hundred feet or so and just take a quick rest.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Normally, it would probably take maybe 45 minutes to walk that 5 kilometers, but it took us 4 hours to walk that.
As darkness approached, they came across a construction site.
There was a trailer there parked off to the side, marked with a sign that said, "Danger."
There's a door.
Explosives. The door to it was locked.
They decided this is where they would spend the night.
We had one sleeping bag between the 2 of us. Cody was exhausted. He was asleep right away. I did not sleep at all. My leg was getting worse and worse as far as pain goes. I just laid there tossing and turning and squirm in pain.
At daybreak, John struggled to gather wood and start a fire so he could cook them some breakfast.
I got a small fire going, and I had a small stick that I wrapped some strips of bacon around. And Cody woke up because he could smell the fire.
Morning, you hungry?
Yeah.
And he saw that I was cooking bacon over the flames with nothing more than a stick. He thought it was pretty cool.
Wanna try?
John knew they must get moving again. but his condition had deteriorated through the night.
The pain was a lot more excruciating than the day before. I didn't think I would make it much further.
You all set there, Cody?
Yeah.
If anywhere at all. You know, that particular road, you might not see anybody on it for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. I wasn't prepared to sit there that long.
At this point, I was very scared, but I figured that, he knew best and that he would keep me safe.
I had a responsibility to take care of my son, and I had to get some help. It was too far to send Cody on his own. Not that he could get lost, but it was just the distance.
Every step for John was now an act of painful desperation.
I was not right thinking the pain would subside. It stayed there. And Cody could see it. He could see it then in my face that it was hurting a lot.
You gotta stop, Cody. Give me a little break. It's gonna be all right. We'll get out of here. You ready to go?
John felt he could withstand hiking along the flat road, but then the route took a steep downhill turn.
The further along we got, the little more steeper the road got. And came to one point where that was it. I just could not go any further. I can't do it.
Now John faced an excruciating decision.
I had started thinking, I might have to send Cody on his own. I really don't want to. Certainly there were bears in the area. We could see bear scat on the road. There's black bears and there's grizzly bears. Some wolves around and there's coyotes. Those are things I did not want them to come across. That and just being alone, still several kilometers away from where we needed to be. And I was thinking about all the possibilities of, didn't want to worry about the bad things.
You're gonna have to go.
No, I can't.
I told him that I couldn't do it, but he just looked at me and he said,
You have to go to Uncle George, to his place.
And he looked me in the eyes and he just told me that I needed to get back to the cabin and that I needed to get help.
And tell him what happened and come on up and get me.
I'm too scared.
You can do it, Cody. Go to Uncle George's.
I was just losing my mind. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't think I could do it.
John Sloot had made an agonizing decision to send his 10-year-old son Cody ahead.
You're gonna have to go.
No, I can't.
Alone in the woods. He knows it's the only hope of survival for both of them.
I'm too scared.
He was scared to go?
You can do it, Cody.
I wanted to give him some reassurance.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you my knife. You can do it. Go to Uncle George's.
I think that did make a difference to him. That, okay, I got some security now.
Go get Uncle George.
So off he went.
I was terrified for both him and me. I didn't think I was able to get help.
He had worry more for me than for himself.
When I had to leave my dad on the second day was when I finally started to feel like it was important for me to be there. Because before then I felt pretty useless. I kind of felt like any 10-year-old would, this is my dad, he's gonna protect me. Mm-hmm. But at that point, the responsibility had shifted from him protecting me to me protecting him.
Not too far into his solo journey, the wild offered up its first terror.
I kicked a rock into the bushes and then I heard a noise, probably just the rock, but at the time I wasn't really thinking. And that kind of freaked me out, so I took the pocket knife out. I flipped the blade up and was holding it around me. In hindsight, I don't think the pocket knife would have really helped a whole lot against a bear, but being 10 years old, it was a good comfort.
I think he was gone maybe 15 minutes, and I decided I'm just not going to sit here. So even if I went 100 yards, I'll try it. While I was walking, I could see his footprints. Sometimes they were, spaced close together, so I knew he was walking. Other places, I could see him further apart, and I knew he was running. It gave me some peace of mind that, okay, he's running. I don't think I made it another half a kilometer before I had to call it quits again.
After many fearful hours, Cody reached his uncle's cabin.
I ran up to the door and started pounding on it.
Uncle George!
When he finally came to the door, I was just rambling on and on.
Dad's hurt. He's been in an ATV accident.
What?
He got the urgency of it.
We'll be back. John's hurt.
We went and started driving towards my dad.
How much further, Cody?
It's right around this corner. There he is.
When the truck stopped, I don't know how to describe it. I just felt some kind of elation.
I was so happy to see my dad was all right. It was just such a tremendous relief.
Where you hurt, John?
I hurt my arm and my leg.
Cody and his uncle helped John into the truck.
So they took me back to his cabin and told me, just don't get out, just sit where you are.
You're gonna be okay then.
And so he got his wife.
You must be starving.
They brought me out a piece of, I think it was cherry pie.
Emergency surgery saved John's foot from amputation. But today he still lives with some limitations.
I still might go for a hike, but it had to be a real short one and nothing crazy. I still go fishing. I just have to be a lot more selective on where I go.
Minor limitations that don't make a dent in John's love of the outdoors and his appreciation of life, family, and faith.
I just feel so lucky that the ATV did not land a few inches off where it did. Where I might have been crippled, I might have been dead. I prayed to God that everything would be okay, and it is. I'm here. I know I'm being looked out for.
Yes, you want to go to Dirty Dreams, eh? Yeah.
Cody and I have kind of had a little special bond after all that adventure.
I think the most important lesson that I learned from that experience was just to not give up, because even if you don't think you can do it, human beings are capable of some pretty amazing things.
A year after the accident, the Governor General of Canada recognized Cody's valor, awarding him the Medal of Bravery. This honor recognizes acts of courage in hazardous circumstances and risking one's life to save the life of another.
Cody is a hero to me. I don't know of too many other 10-year-olds that would go out on their own like that under those circumstances to save someone's life.
I definitely don't feel like a hero. I feel like it was just kind of what I had to do, and I feel like anyone put into those circumstances would do the same thing. I believe that God was watching out for us.
Cody did what he had to do, and I look up to him for that. He is a hero to me.
John remained calm even in the midst of great pain. He had to give Cody the courage to strike out on his own and get help. When I returned to climbing after my own accident, sometimes just putting one foot in front of the other was courage. Moving and doing is the victory. That was Cody's victory. He had to face his own fear and hike out alone. His determination to save his father became the inspiration for his own fight to survive.
In Iraq, Marines are targeted by a deadly sniper. When one is hit, another throws the rule book aside.
Sometimes you have to do what you got to do to save your brother.
Now this Marine is in the same lethal crosshairs.
He hit me with a sledgehammer.
Nearly losing his own life. His rescue effort fails.
I got banged up.
He said I lost one of my guys.
The sniper's shots damage more than flesh and bone.
gunfights prior to that. I was unstoppable. I was Superman.
Get back in the fight.
A Marine's battle to heal turns out to be this warrior's biggest fight to survive. In the wild, when things go bad, they go bad fast. Without warning, your life can hang by a thread. Adventurer and survivor Craig DiMartino fought back from his own wilderness disaster to reclaim his life. Now Craig meets other courageous outdoorsmen who beat the odds and return from their own fight to survive.
Hi, I'm Craig DiMartino. Outdoorsmen can find themselves in survival situations they never expected, as I did in my own climbing accident. But when a man chooses to go to war, he knows full well he may end up in a fight for his life. Marine Corps Master Sergeant Buck Doyle considered himself indestructible, and the brotherhood of the Corps meant everything to him. But on his deployment to Anbar Province in February of 2007, Buck would discover that he was neither bulletproof nor emotionally invincible.
Early morning, May 26, 2007. A convoy of 4 Humvees moved along a road north of the Iraqi city of Fallujah. In the vehicles were a dozen U.S. Marines. These were members of an elite unit known as Recon Marines, an outfit akin to the Navy SEALs or the Army's Green Berets. They were heading to a remote forward operating base an hour or so away. Troops at that small outpost had been under attack by an elusive and deadly enemy sniper. And these Recon Marines had been tasked to assist in eliminating the sniper. Typically, Recon Marines conducted operations under cover of darkness. This unusual daylight mission meant the team needed to be extra vigilant. But their platoon sergeant, Gunnery Sergeant Buck Doyle, wasn't worried. He knew his Marines could handle the situation.
Come on. Move it, double time it. Come on, don't have a picnic up there. Let's go.
Probably trained with my platoon more than most people like me to.
Up!
When you attain the position of platoon sergeant,
Right side!
you're responsible for training those underneath you.
Good. Much quicker than last week. Let's go. Move it.
I wanted to be the best. So every time a team went out, I conducted the operation with them.
Kilo talk, this is Pale Horse 2 over. We have eyes on a military.
That relationship is one that is very, very challenging. Never ending, never forgiving, 24/7, 365.
And you do start to develop a bond out there.
These guys, we're family. We're all brothers.
As far as he was concerned, the Marines that, his Marines, they were family too.
If there's anything you need to talk to me about, I mean anything, don't hesitate to call me, okay?
Understood.
Okay.
That bond that he had with his men was strong. It was unbreakable.
Gunny Doyle was riding in the last Humvee. At the head of the column, nearly 500 yards up the road, was the Humvee with Sergeant Nick Walsh. Walsh was Doyle's right-hand man. Although he didn't have as much experience as Doyle, Walsh did have proven communication and leadership skills, talents that Doyle had put to good use.
All right, gentlemen, bring it in. We have a 7-day op coming up. We will be conducting multiple tasks.
Everyone has their own personality, own strong suits.
Listen, I need you to knock your jaw jacking off. Get your heads in the game. This briefing is going to take some time, so just settle in and get comfortable.
With Nick, he was a communicator. He knew whenever I got frustrated about something or, I gotta get this done, he said, hey, I got it.
All right. I'll find you after we're finished.
Roger that, Sergeant Walsh.
After a while, I just looked at him and said, okay, you got it. He had a strength that I did not possess.
All right, guys. 7-day up. Lots of time in the vehicles. Cruz, I need you to get the vehicles ready. Copy?
So for him to be around me was always a plus.
Nick was actually in the Marine Corps prior, got out, spent a few years as a civilian, and then came back into the recon community. And we were lucky enough for him to join our platoon.
Not long into their drive to the outpost, the convoy encountered a tangle of civilian traffic. The Marines had driven into the Iraqi version of morning rush hour.
Sir, can you, I understand, can you please step back? Water.
Then, bad news. The lead vehicle, Sergeant Walsh's Humvee, collided with an Iraqi car.
Just want to make sure everyone's okay here. Okay.
Nobody was hurt, but the Humvee was not going anywhere.
Please stop.
Kilo Talk. This is Pale Horse Actual. We have a down vehicle on the middle of Highway 1.
The platoon commander radioed back to camp and requested a recovery vehicle drive out and fetch their disabled Humvee.
Roger that. Standing by. Over.
Meanwhile, we're sitting there in the middle of the road with a downed vehicle. We're sitting ducks.
To be in a stranded position, fully exposed in the daytime,
Sergeant Walsh, give me a sit rep.
Tie rod gunny, we ain't going anywhere.
that is the worst case scenario.
Let's see if we can fix this mess. Okay, I'm gonna post a vehicle both sides of Highway 1.
Doyle quickly dispersed the remaining vehicles and set up a security perimeter as they awaited the arrival of the recovery trucks.
Head on the swivel, everybody. Stay up on your comm. Let's move.
The temperature started getting hot.
Let's go.
Over 100 degrees. When you're sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, 5 minutes is forever. So 4 hours just seemed like eternity.
Kilo Talk, this is Pale Horse 2. I need an ETA on that recovery team.
Everyone's getting very impatient and antsy. Being out in the day and sitting on the road was the worst thing could happen to a bunch of recon Marines.
A team of recon Marines remained stranded out in the open on an Iraqi road.
I need an ETA on that recovery team.
For hours in sweltering heat, they've been awaiting the arrival of a recovery vehicle to haul away their disabled Humvee.
Sergeant Walsh, give me a sit rep.
Tie rod gunny, we ain't going anywhere.
The delay was excruciating for the Marines.
Head on the swivel, everybody.
Sitting ducks in the wide open desert with little options for cover.
Roger that. Standing by. Over.
Platoon commander called back and asked where are we at with the wrecking crew coming out to recover the vehicle.
Can you give us a heads up before that recovery team arrives on scene? Over.
So we said, hey, be sure to let us know when you leave Camp Fallujah so we can rearrange our formation and prepare to receive you.
But without any advance warning, the recovery team drove towards the Marines. They pulled into the formation and clustered their trucks around the disabled Humvee.
I quickly drove in that direction to receive him.
Doyle did not like what he saw. The clustered vehicles made for an enticing target.
Our recovery team were all parked right next to each other, nice and tight. There was no tactical dispersion.
Can you help me orchestrate this? We get this car out of here.
So you basically had a big mess. I get out of my vehicle.
This is why I asked for a heads up. The situation does not look good.
And I started forcibly telling people to get back in the vehicle.
Gunny, I got this.
Nick sees Gunny going off and tries to assist.
Move this car over here. Hey, guys, Gunny.
The JAG, a Marine lawyer, stepped forward to help deal with the civilians.
The minute I engaged with him, that first pop went off.
Doyle turned to see Sergeant Walsh drop to the ground.
At that point, I just went into doing what I wasn't supposed to, and that's grab Nick.
But that wasn't standard operating procedure, or SOP.
The SOP is that somebody's been shot, the best medicine is superior firepower, but at the same time, when you see one of your brothers shot and bleeding, sometimes SOPs don't make sense. Sometimes you have to do what you got to do to save your brother.
I want to become a reconnaissance.
Craig DiMartino traveled to Utah to meet Buck Doyle and to learn firsthand why the platoon sergeant made the choice to help Walsh.
What were you thinking in your head, or was it a thing? Was it even a thought? Why did you not do that?
When you work up in a team or a platoon, over time, you develop that brotherly bond, that love.
Right.
If you see someone that you love injured or in harm's way or hurt, all that goes out the window. You're going to his aid no matter what. What I saw was one of my brothers hurt, and I was right there, and I was going to do something about it.
More sniper rounds impacted around Doyle and Walsh.
I'm not surprised that Buck made the decision to do everything he could to save Nick. because you're simply not going to leave an individual out there alone.
It wouldn't have mattered if it was Nick or me or a new private. If he was one of Buck's guys, Buck would have been out there dragging him back.
The sniper's next shot found its target. This time, it was Doyle.
Could I have you guys just move this car out of the
Without
way?
warning, an enemy sniper opened fire on Sergeant Nick Walsh and Gunnery Sergeant Buck Doyle. As Walsh collapsed to the ground, Doyle stepped into the line of fire to pull his fellow warrior to safety. Then, a sniper round struck Doyle's chest body armor and ricocheted into his leg.
Going into that situation, you felt like you were Superman.
Right.
But now all of a sudden you get hit.
Right.
What were you feeling at that realization?
Yeah, it's hard to describe it in words. It felt like eternity. I'm realizing how vulnerable I am. No one could have told me in a million years that was a card hand I was going to play one day. And boom, it's there.
The sniper had zeroed in on Doyle and fired again.
So at that point, I'm on the ground trying to regain my bearing. My arm is twisted up like a Muppet.
Get Nick. They got him.
Doyle was severely wounded, but he still focused on saving Walsh.
It's okay.
Oh, somebody get Nick.
They got him. They got him. Go, 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 go.
The Marines loaded Doyle and Walsh into Humvees and rushed them to the hospital back at camp.
And it wasn't until after my first surgery I came to inside a recovery room, and I had my platoon around me. I remember the first thing I asked is, "Where's Nick?" And they all looked at me. And no one said anything. And that's what I do.
Sergeant Nick Walsh died on the battlefield shortly after being hit. There on that hospital bed, Doyle realized that it really wasn't the shattered arm or fractured leg that hurt him. His real pain came from an unseen injury.
Up until that point, I went through my Marine Corps career and all the schools and the gunfights prior to that and all the missions. I was unstoppable. And then all of a sudden I get hit with a bullet and watch one of my brothers die. And I was starting to realize, understand what kryptonite feels like when you're Superman. And it was a horrible feeling.
Doyle's thoughts then turned to his wife.
When you're sitting there, it seems like forever. I remember specifically just wondering, did I say I love? Did I tell my wife that I loved her the last time we talked?
Here you go, Gunny.
Thanks.
We'll be right outside if you need anything.
Later on that day, they brought me a phone in, and I called the wife.
Hello? Buck?
Yeah, it's me.
As soon as I heard his voice, I knew it wasn't the same as the other calls. He said, "I need you to listen to me."
Got banged up. She goes, "What do you mean banged up?" I said, "Well, I got shot."
How bad are you going to be okay? And I just wanted to know that he was going to live.
The thing is,
But then there was a really distinct shift in his voice.
I lost one of my guys.
I heard the crack in his voice, and it really changed. And at that point, I was more worried about his heart and his head than I was his physical well-being.
Buck?
I'm still here. Because I knew that for him, losing one of his guys, that was the worst thing that could happen, and probably one of the toughest places that he could be in.
For the seasoned leader, coming to terms with losing one of his Marines, a valuable warrior and a dear friend, became the most torturous wound to heal.
Gunny, I got this.
On May 26, 2007, a sniper killed Marine Sergeant Nick Walsh and then put his crosshairs on Gunnery Sergeant Buck Doyle. Rounds hit Doyle in his leg and his arm, but Doyle didn't die. But if Doyle was ever to lead Marines into combat again, he would have to heal not only those physical injuries, but an emotional trauma as well.
How hard was that to reconcile in your head?
I had 8 days to walk around. My arm's cut open. I got tubes going in. I got a wound vac hooked to me. I'm going to the bathroom, and you look in the mirror, and it just hits me. For the first time, I'm looking at myself in the mirror with all this, and it all started hitting me. You know, am I going to return to the battlefield? Am I still that guy? Am I that guy that can go in harm's way and still perform at that level with no hesitation? That is a scary question to ask yourself, because I couldn't see any resemblance of that guy in the mirror.
Right.
I knew internally, be able to see that guy, it's in here. And that's when Kyle tells me, hey,
You need to get back in the fight. You need
gotta
to heal up.
and you gotta get back in the fight. And at that moment, she just confirmed that, yes, I need to get back out there.
And you know, when you turned to me and he said,
Kyla, I need to tell you that I'm sorry.
and I said, why are you sorry? And he said, you know,
Because in that moment, when everything happened,
I knew I was standing there in the line of fire and that I was gonna get shot and that I probably would get killed.
I didn't hesitate. I didn't
He felt guilty that that was a choice he was making, and he knew he had a wife and kids at home. I said, if you hadn't made that choice, then you wouldn't have been the man that I married. The guy that turned around to help Nick and the guy who was willing to sacrifice his life for his fellow Marine, that's the guy that I married. If you hadn't made it back because of that, I could live with that and I could tell your children about that. You have to keep living your life doing what you know is right.
For 2 years, Doyle worked hard towards full recovery, and in 2009, he was given a chance to join another Marine unit heading to Afghanistan. He took it, and alongside fellow Marines, he proved to himself that he could still do his job in combat.
I had my mojo back, but remember what kryptonite felt like was always there. So every step forward I took knowing the consequences. I lived it, whether it's me getting hurt or someone else getting hurt.
Right.
I knew what that was like, where before, train hard, get out there and get some.
Buck was the epitome of what a warrior is, what a gunfighter is. That guy that was never going to quit and never going to stop until the fight was won.
I don't think we're put here in life to learn from easy. I think we're here to learn from hard. So the obstacles are there to learn. Sometimes you just pray that you learn them fast so that the obstacles can be over.
Buck Doyle retired from the Marine Corps in 2010 as a Master Sergeant after 21 and a half years of service. Today, he owns a company called Follow Through Consulting that provides, among many things, expert firearms training for qualified civilians, law enforcement, and U.S. military.
If you look off to your right, have a few targets out there in the cliffs.
Craig DiMartino visited the range for a bit of what Buck does best. And it was no surprise to find Buck's 2 daughters hitting 12-inch steel targets at 500 meters.
You've kind of taken it upon you to teach them guns from a very young age. Why is that important to you to give them that?
There's a discipline in handling a firearm. There's safety, but then there's also an art to be able to perform with the firearm. That builds confidence.
Absolutely.
To me, it's an awesome feeling.
Yeah,
it's awesome to watch. Lean into it so you can kind of stable that position and manage recoil.
Then, Craig tried his hand with a LaRue carbine.
When you squeeze that trigger back, realign your sights. That starts our follow through. Nice. Now you know your hold.
Something I've noticed as you're kind of moving your hand is, tell me about your bracelet.
The hero bracelet is my reminder of Nick. So basically it has his full name, his rank, the unit we served, 1st Recon Battalion together. And the day he passed away, so Nick was always off to my left. Every time we did a hit, we did recce patrols, we did convoys, he was right there. So I keep a reminder of him on my left side and in everything I do.
That's fantastic.